Welcome back, guys. I want to take you through a couple of scalp trades I had on AMD today, Advanced Micro Devices. So this is one of the textbook short setups that I look for every day. Let me take you through it. So looking at the daily chart, this is where we get most of our ideas from. I always want to look at the daily chart. So looking back on this stock, previous 4 or 5 months here, we see that we're in a range of 120 to 175 here. And I want you to take a look at this area right here, the 132 area. Back in September, price tested this area and held as support there. And then in November, price returned to this area and bounced off of there a couple of times. So there's some support in that 132 area. And what you'll see is the more times that support gets tested, when it finally breaks, you get a nice resolution to the downside. So that can set up some great short opportunities that we can take advantage of. So let's look at the intraday chart. This is a 3-minute chart. What I was looking for coming into today was some continuation from the move that happened yesterday. So yesterday was the breakdown day where it broke through that 132 area. And what I'm looking for today was a continuation move. So ideally, when I saw that we were gapping up in the morning, I wanted to see the stock go from green to red and then break yesterday's low, which was at 130. That's this line right here, 130. Yesterday was the low point there where we found some support, and I wanted to see that break this morning, which is exactly what happened. So right out of the gate, this green to red move, this is a great setup here for aggressive traders. I don't like to take entries on the first candle of the day because it's a period of price discovery, and it can be really volatile, lots of whipsaws, and I just don't like to get involved because it's hard to protect your risk. So I like to let it open, find some areas where I can risk to, and then look for entries. Here it was kind of, I really wanted to get involved, but I didn't see a good area where I could protect my risk. So I just kind of had to let it go, let it set up, and see if I can find an opportunity. Let the pattern form, let the trade come to you. There's no reason to jump in and just to be in the trade. We trade because there's value, not because we just want to trade. So what actually ended up happening was we went red on the day, we broke yesterday's low, and then we bounced off the 129 area and retested that area that held as support yesterday. So this to me is a great setup. I always like to see support broken and then retested and confirm that now that previous support is acting as resistance. So once I saw that we couldn't break any higher than yesterday's support area, that is my signal to enter short. So the other thing I look for is how price reacts to the moving averages. So this green line is the 9 EMA. The blue line is the VWAP, volume weighted price, average price, volume weighted average price. So when we bounce into these areas, I like to see weakness and a attempt to start fading off again right to the lows. So once we see that, like I said, this is my entry here. We faded off of VWAP and we faded off of 130, the previous support area. It's safe to take an entry here. And the first thing I look for is, where do I set my stops? And it's quite obvious here. Just go to the previous high. If price would turn around and break above that 130.3 3, then I'm probably wrong on the trade. So that's the area that I'm risking to. So that's the first thing. Where do you risk to? The second thing is, where can I find a place to add to my position? So if I'm right, I want to take much bigger size. And as you can see here, price just kind of faded off, and there's really no strength in the stock. The bulls just can't get control of it. We break below the 9 EMA, and price makes a few attempts to get above that, but really there's no solid buyers in there. It's mostly just selling. And so once we start to break down below these lows here, I add to the position in the mid 129s. And then ultimately, we want to see what happens when we get down to the morning support. And I'd love to see a breakdown from there. So we actually got that nice resolution lower, this nice washout below the low of the day, and I added another position there. So I take 3 entries, and the way I manage the position is my first stop loss is right in the 130.3, and as I'm taking more entries, I'm lowering my stop loss so that I'm protecting my downside. Price turns around, I don't lose as much as I could. So that's another way of protecting yourself. And the worst case scenario would have been probably a break-even trade, or maybe just a small loss. What ended up happening is we broke below the low of the day. We got this nice resolution down to the low 128s. I covered some of my position. Since I took 3 entries, I covered in thirds. So I took a third off here. I took another third off into the 128.30s. And I let the rest, I was hoping for another move lower, but once you see a higher low and price start to break above the 9 EMA, that's time to get out and wait for the next trade. So not a home run trade, but definitely a trade that can produce some good cash flow with low risk. So another thing that I do is I just don't leave it, because oftentimes you'll see that it provides another entry. So what we can look for is price to form a new low and a new range that we can trade off. So what ends up happening is we find support at the low 128s, and you'll see that we test this area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So it kind of goes back to that concept that we saw in the daily chart. The more times you test an area, the higher the probability that it's going to break, and you'll see a nice resolution in the direction of your trade. So towards the end of the day, I took another entry here as we broke the lows of the day. And since it was almost time for the close, I exited my trade towards the low 127s, and then as it popped back up over, I took the rest of it off. So again, not another home run, but definitely a good risk versus reward for some cash flow. So that's what I look for in these intraday, all-day fader trades. I like to see support broken, retested, take entries, support broken, retested, take some more entries, and cover into the washouts. So hope you learned something here. Stay tuned for the next video.